Did you know that sometimes the biggest obstacle to God's plan in our lives is not the devil, not other people, but ourselves? It's possible to love God, pray to Him, and still resist His will without realizing it. When we fight against God's plan, we delay His blessings and exhaust ourselves trying to walk in our own strength. But here's the good news. God is patient, and He gives us warning signs when we're resisting Him. If you've been feeling stuck or confused, this message is for you. Pay attention, because if you notice these 5 signs, it may mean you're fighting God's plan for your life. Sign number 1, constant frustration and closed doors. One of the clearest signs that you're resisting God's will is repeated frustration. You keep pushing for something, but no matter how hard you try, the doors don't open. You pour in effort, but nothing works out. Proverbs 19:21 reminds us, "Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails." Closed doors are often God's way of redirecting you. When everything feels like it's falling apart, ask yourself, am I pushing for my own will instead of God's? Think about Jonah. God told him to go to Nineveh, but Jonah ran the other way. What followed? Storms, chaos, and frustration until he finally surrendered. Closed doors are often storms of mercy, God's way of pulling you back on track. Sign number 2, lack of peace, even in success. Another sign you may be fighting God's plan is when you have success by the world's standards, but no peace inside. Outwardly, things may look good. You've got the job, the relationship, or the opportunity you wanted, but inwardly, you feel restless and unfulfilled. Colossians 3:15 says, "Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts." When you're in God's will, peace flows, even in hardship. But when you're out of alignment, emptiness lingers, no matter how much you achieve. If you've lost peace, it's time to evaluate whether you're walking your path or God's. Sign number 3, ignoring godly counsel. When we're resisting God's plan, we often reject wise counsel. Maybe people close to you, mentors, pastors, friends, have warned you about a decision, but you brush it off because it doesn't match what you want. Proverbs 12:15 says, "The way of fools seems right to them, but the wise listen to advice." Ignoring godly counsel is a dangerous sign. God often speaks through others to protect us from mistakes. If you find yourself constantly defending your choices and refusing correction, you may be fighting against His will. Sign number 4, living in disobedience or compromise. Another clear sign is when you knowingly live in disobedience. Maybe God asked you to let go of a relationship, a habit, or a lifestyle, but you're holding on anyway. Fighting God's plan often looks like holding on to sin while still asking for blessing. James 4:17 says, "If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them." Delayed obedience is still disobedience. When we compromise, we block the flow of God's favor. The longer we resist, the longer we stay stuck. Sign number 5, lack of fruit and spiritual dryness. Finally, when you're fighting God's plan, your life stops producing spiritual fruit. Joy, peace, patience, and love begin to fade. Prayer feels empty. Worship feels distant. Reading scripture feels like a chore. Jesus said in John 15:5, "I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing." Fighting His plan disconnects you from His flow, leaving you spiritually dry. If your walk with God feels lifeless, it may be a sign you're out of alignment with His will. How to surrender and realign. If you've recognized yourself in these signs, don't lose hope. God doesn't reveal resistance to condemn you. He reveals it to redirect you. The key is surrender. 1, pray honestly. Admit to God where you've been pushing your own way. 2, seek His word. Let Scripture guide your next steps instead of emotions. 3, obey quickly. When He shows you His will, respond with action, not delay. 4, trust His timing. Remember, His plan may not match your timeline, but it is always better. Romans 12:2 encourages us, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. So are you noticing these signs? Have doors been closing? Have you lost peace? Have you resisted godly counsel, compromised, or felt spiritually dry? If so, it may be time to stop fighting and start surrendering. God's plan may not always be easy, but it will always lead to life, peace, and purpose. Remember this: surrender is not losing, it's winning. It's the moment you trade your limited plan for God's perfect one. If this message spoke to you, type "I surrender" in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more messages that will help you walk in God's will.